This is a podcast about one woman's mission to help entrepreneurs and business owners write better business books. Each week, we tackle your writing excuses, because there are excuses too, and help you beat the blank page of doom so that you can write the book that'll grow your life and your business. Now here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. I am coming at you from my car because I have forgotten to record the introduction to this week's podcast. So here I am. Hello if you're watching the video, and hello if you are listening to the podcast. This week, I am talking to Christine Meyer, who has written a book that we're going to talk about on the podcast called Keep It Simple, Smarty Pants. It's a great little book. We have a really good conversation, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So enjoy. Christine, thank you so much for joining me on the 1000 Authors Show. It's fabulous to have you here.
Thank you, Vicky. I'm really happy to be here.
Amazing. Okay, so I have so many questions, but I always ask the question first just to get everything started, so I calm down a bit. What are you reading at the moment, and are you enjoying it?
Right now, I am reading a book called An Audience of One. It's a very colorful book cover, and the subtitle is Reclaiming Creativity for Its Own Sake. And Srinivas Rao, I hope I didn't just totally mutilate his name, wrote it. And I'm finding it really interesting because it's about finding your own creativity and finding your own path and truly creating for an audience of one, that being first and foremost yourself and pleasing yourself. And then also, if you affect one other person, then you've done your job. Obviously, I think we all have bigger dreams than that. Larger desires than just reaching one person at a time, an audience. But I'm really, really, really loving this book. And I don't always see a book through when I'm reading it. I pick it up and read a few chapters and think, okay, done with that. And this one, I'm well more than halfway through and really enjoying it.
Oh, fantastic.
It's good for creatives in your audience.
Brilliant. I'm going to add that to my list of things to read them. I love the idea of that audience form because, yes, of course, we all have dreams of kind of reaching more people, but we have no control over that at all. But we do have control over pleasing ourselves. And so if we start there, I think that's always a nice place to start.
Right. And it's a great marker point for where to start, because if you're not pleasing yourself, then how are you ever going to please anyone else?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. So let's talk about you and your book. And just before we dive into your book, which I'm going to wave here gently, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, I am a mom, a dog lover, and a wife, and a human being who loves nature and loves to enjoy life. And I'm also a life coach. And so I coach people on how to find their own path, on how to discover what that is, how to connect to their soul. That's an important part of my coaching. How to discern and understand emotions, and how to allow those emotions to be guidance for your own path, and to live your life joyfully and playfully and as you intended to. Because I do believe that everyone wants to feel good and wants to live a good life. And I mean, when I say good life, I mean that might include having stuff, how we identify stuff, success, all of those things. But first and foremost, what we all want at the core of us is to feel good, And so why not do that on your way to having the things you want, the experiences you want, the people in your life that you want. So that's what I coach people on. And of course, it includes modifying beliefs, mindset, perspectives, all of that stuff. I can't be a coach without including all of that. But we have to start from three foundations, which is you have a soul, your emotions are really important, and you create. And that's really, 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 really important to know if you want to live a life that doesn't feel random and might my clients tend to be unmistakable mavericks. They have a sense of their own desires, and they have a sense of wanting to follow their own path.
Yeah, I've been reading your book, and I found it's great. I've really enjoyed it. I've found it really fascinating as well, because there's there's stuff in there that I have not come across before, because I am a very practical kind of person. But I also, one of the things that I loved most was this idea of using your emotions, because I think so many of us, certainly when I was a kid, I was always told, don't cry, don't be too much, don't make me uncomfortable with your emotions. And so I think quite often we're always told to keep our emotions inside. So I love the idea of using your emotions as a useful tool. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I don't know that most people know that. We are led to believe, we assume that our emotions are not indicators, that they're just truths of things, and that we shouldn't really pay attention overall to how we feel, that it's don't be too emotional. And so when you marry that with the idea that you have a soul perspective, and that soul has a frequency, a resonance, a very high frequency, and that your emotions are feedback to you. When you feel good, you are in resonance with that high frequency. Therefore, you are also more in resonance with your desires. And when you feel bad, which doesn't mean your emotions are bad, it just means you don't feel good emotionally. That means that you are opposing your desires and opposing that higher frequency, which means then that takes you out of alignment with what you want, and takes you out of alignment with who you truly are. And when you start understanding that that's what your emotions are really telling you, then it gives you more empowerment to continue to choose. Because a lot of people have an emotion about something, and like you, and you're told, don't be too much, don't be sad, only be happy, don't be mad, don't. And only positive emotions are encouraged. And from this vantage point, all emotions are welcome, and embrace them, because they're information for you, and that you can change them. That because you feel a certain way about something doesn't mean that you have to keep feeling that. You are actually more in charge of your emotions than what most people believe they are. It's not conditional. It doesn't have to be conditional. Although most people do make it conditional. Something happens, I feel this way, and I'm going to keep feeling this way forever. Or I don't have this and I want this, therefore I feel like this because I don't have it. And it's like, well, there's a whole other way to think that puts you more in alignment with actually receiving it, having it, enjoying it. But you can have fun on the way. You can feel better on the way. So obviously I go into more simple description in the book, because I want to keep it simple. I want to keep it practical for people, but that's a whole different understanding of emotions than, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm not going to get you to talk too much more about that, because it's in the book and people can buy the book if they wish to do so. It's very easily available on Amazon. And like I said, it's a great read. It's a simple read, which I love. It's had perspectives that I had not thought about before. And you have put things in ways that I hadn't considered before. So I found that really, really interesting and really useful. So tell us about the book. What made you decide to write this book?
Well, I think I've been wanting to write a book for a really long time. I started a different book 12 years ago or something like that, and sort of ditched the idea. But this is sort of an evolution of that, really. It really is. And I found myself writing back then about the soul, but from a different perspective. And so I was ready. I was ready. And this book is my work. This book is my livelihood. This book is everything that I think about every day, all day, and what I coach people on. So this book was an easy transition to write, because I know this information in and out.
And I noticed that it was published in 2020, which people may be aware. A thing happened in 2020. There was a global pandemic and we all went into lockdown. So can you tell us a bit about that experience? Like, what made you decide to write it then in the middle of a pandemic, and how did you find that experience?
Well, I started writing it way before the pandemic happened, and I was on track to publish it in June, July of 2020, and in the meantime, the pandemic happened. So, I paused a little bit because it is about stop overthinking, start aligning, and live happy. And so many people were experiencing a sense of uncertainty and conditions that they understandably so were reacting to and weren't feeling all that happy about things. So, but then I decided it might be something for people to read that will help them get through this. Mm-hmm. And so the pandemic really didn't affect much of anything for me in terms of messing up my plans or my intentions. And I didn't have a book launch established, meaning to go travel around or do any of that stuff anyway. So I did some promos and things like that. And I think it was actually perfect timing because it was really helpful. I've heard back from a lot of people on how this book has helped them through this pandemic and how perfectly timed it was for them to find a different perspective about their situation and the global situation as well.
Oh, brilliant. I can imagine it would have been because there were a lot of feelings, a lot of feelings last year. So
a lot of feelings. And so if you have a guide to help you navigate those feelings and understand them from a different perspective, a different way than you've ever understood them, that's really helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit about, because you self-published, didn't you?
I did.
So what was behind that decision? Because presumably you thought about traditional publishing. What made you decide to go with self-publishing?
I did. I thought about it all. And what felt best to me was to go the self-publishing route. I found that I had a little too many things in the way to go through a publisher, meaning I didn't want to have to wait for someone else to approve of my book. Mm-hmm. And I wanted this to be an easy route and just go ahead and publish it. Of course, I had it professionally edited. Of course, I worked with a book coach. Of course, all of those things. And I wanted to produce a really, really good book and a well displayed book, a really good quality book. And I just found that my sense was if I go through a regular publishing route, I would perhaps hit more roadblocks than I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And so self-publishing just seemed like the next logical step for me. And with self-publishing, there are things that I learned that I never knew about, certainly. And I have someone who manages my book on Amazon. So that's really helpful. I took as many of that minutia to me out of my way so that I could just focus on writing my book and having it be the way that I want it to without needing approval from anyone else.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from people who self-publish or indie publishers, as I call it, is that level of control over what you're doing and the freedom to do with it what you want as well.
Yeah, that was really important to me. Again, it's creativity, right? So although it's my work, but it's also creative in the sense of doing the book cover the way that felt inspired and so on. And so I didn't want to be hitting too many roadblocks, especially with my first book, because that's a real confidence basher.
It is. Yeah, it is. So let's talk about the writing of this first book then. Did you enjoy the process?
I really did. Overall, it was really easy. And my approach to writing was not, I'm going to sit down. And I know that there's a lot of conventional wisdom that does say you need to sit down, you need to write 1,000 words a day or whatever, many things out there. My approach really was get an outline. I got a Kickstarter through a book coach and on figuring out what my book was about, what I wanted to write about. And I produced an outline. And from there, that was so easy from there because everything I did was in Trello. And through the Trello board, I just kept adding ideas, concepts, principles, foundations that fit into those chapter headings. I called them chapter headings. I ended up not even using the chapter headings in my book, but it was a way to format my and funnel my thoughts and my brain. And so I just kept dropping things in. And then the editor, the developmental editor that I worked with, then looked at it and saw the big picture, saw the arc of it, because I was too much in the middle to really see it. I knew what I wanted to say, but so she took it and she would ask me questions. And then I would, well, I can answer that easily. We knew the game we were playing. And so I would either type it myself and respond to her, or she would ask it to me and I would speak it to her and she would type it. And that's how my book developed. And it was really easy. And there were times when it felt hard, when I had nothing to say. But once we got into the groove of that, it was just so easy. And it was just so fabulous to work with a book coach and a developmental editor. And it just kept the flow really, really going. So overall, it was easy. And it took me about a year, through the course of a year, maybe two, but it all came together in a weekend.
It does happen kind of quick. At the end.
Yeah. Once it was all there, it was all there. So it did come together very quickly once it was all there. Yeah.
Amazing. And what were the big, I know that you said you felt one of the reasons you worked with an editor is because you felt like you were kind of this close to it and you couldn't see the bigger story. So would you say was that your biggest challenge? What other challenges did you face when you were writing it? Well,
I think the organization of it was a huge thing for me, because when I started writing it on my own, I was like, I don't know where to put this. I don't know where it goes. I don't know if I'll find it. Do I put it in Google Docs? And so all of that was just messing my process up. It was all busy information for me. And so the editor was extremely helpful in just looking at that big picture, because I couldn't quite see. I could feel and sense how it came together, but I didn't know how to put it together. Yeah. So that was so very helpful. Very helpful. Yeah.
Okay. And what have you found? How did you feel after you'd finished writing your book?
I think it's a long process, and it's a process that you're part of, that I was part of over the course of time. So when I was done, it was like, well, there you have it. You know, kind of like when I got pregnant with our daughter, we weren't really planning on it, but it wasn't a big surprise. And we got a call, and the lady, our friend who was the nurse, said, well, you're pregnant. And my husband and I looked at each other and said, well, what do you know? You know, it's like one of those things, you know, it's coming, and it's satisfying and gratifying and fulfilling. And yet it was a next logical step. So it wasn't this big thing, but I think getting it published felt like another accomplishment also.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, I finished writing the book. Yay, it's done. And then it's like, no.
No, it's not. Yeah, no, it's not. Because from the time that I completed the book, I intended summer of 2019. I thought, well, what I'd really like to do is finish my book by the end of the summer. And guess what? I did. That last weekend of summer, it was done. And it was between there until June of 2020 because there were multiple edits, back and forth things, design elements, coordinating everyone. You know, writing a book, in my opinion, it's beautiful to have a team of people, because writing a book alone can be done, certainly, but it was just, for me, it was just so much fun to have people in on it too.
Yeah, and I think as well, if you're doing it completely on your own, it's not going to be the best book you can produce, because you need other eyes on it. And you know, if I were to design my own book cover, it would look like a drunken toddler had done it. So it's best not to go there.
Yeah, if you can hire professionals. You don't have to, but I mean, it was really, I love my book designer, and Sutton Long is her name, and she was just amazing. And she got the vision right off the bat. I had one conversation with her, told her what I was feeling and sensing, and she took it and she ran with it, and she's amazing. Now, the one thing I did find out that I didn't know was that I don't know if this book cover is actually popular in the UK.
Yeah. I mean,
because apparently book covers vary from, right. And some book covers do not sell in the UK, like if you design it to be sold in the US and you try and translate it to the UK, yeah, not so much.
So yeah, that's more of a thing with traditional publishing, because the trad publishers tend to, because they know their markets really, really well, obviously, and so they tend to have it tends to be trad published books that have different covers in different territories. And I think for UK versus US, it's a little bit less important because we're kind of similar in culture. But obviously, if you're going to be publishing somewhere like China, for example, red is a lucky color in China. It's not a lucky color everywhere. So you might think about things like that with book covers.
Right.
So,
I just found that interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's great. I love it. It's simple. It reminds me of a couple of other books that I like, but without being derivative. It's just simple, like black and white, bit of splash of color. Yellow's my favorite color, so yeah.
Awesome. Well, and that this sort of came to me, that keep it simple, smarty pants. The whole it was kind of an intentional thing, but it wasn't. It's kind of a subliminal thing that came to me, was that here's this guy reaching for things he wants, right? Or he, she, right? He, she, they, them, non-gender here, but reaching for things and joy, right? Happiness. And yellow and balloon represents joyful, playful, childlike, how you used to feel, you can feel now, and then reaching for it, but not having it. And then at the end of the book, well, here's my sticky note. This is my author copy, but on the other side of the book, he has the balloon. And I don't know that many people will get that message, but that's what that's implying.
I love it.
You have it. You have it.
It's
right.
Yeah.
You might be reaching for it, but you have it.
I love that. I love that your cover has got a message as well, and it's a very specific message. I also like. I love book design and everything as well. So I like the yellow spine. I like that it's not laid out inside like every other book is. So, for example, got little stick man. I love your little stick figures.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's just cute. I like it. And it's, like you say, keep it simple. The whole ethos has run through your whole book, which I love. So with the book then, since you published it, what have you found that has changed for you, if anything? How has your business changed?
Yeah, well, I have people reaching out to me quite a bit about what they liked about the book and how it's affected their lives. I've had people reach out to me for coaching. I've had people reach out to me to be part of their book clubs, to speak, have their book club read my book and then come as online and discuss it with them. And so many other things, podcasts, and it's just a good networking tool and great conversation starter.
Yeah. And
I'm just, more than anything, I'm just happy I wrote it and eager to write more. Amazing. Yeah, but it's definitely, it's changed a lot of things. I'm probably not getting them all across here. But, I didn't do it for the accolades, and I didn't do it to set myself up as an expert, although it does. A book just does, and sort of elevates you in some way, shape, or form in that sense. But it was a personal project more than anything that I feel called to do. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the hidden benefits of writing a book that people don't realize, is that feeling afterwards of all of the things that you've just described. It's like, yes, all of that stuff about elevating you and expert status on that, that's great. And that's almost a side effect to that feeling of, oh, I have done this thing that I really wanted to do. And it was really important to me. And it was hard. It was a hard thing to do. And I've done it.
Right. It wasn't a strategic thing. It was a thing that I could not do.
Yeah.
I've wanted to write a book. I felt I would write a book for a long time. And now all I want to do is write more books.
Okay, so tell us about the books that you want to write then. This is exciting. And this is a thing as well, by the way, a running theme with people that are like, oh, I've written my book. And it's like, right, when can I write the next one? And it's a slippery slope. Yeah,
well, I know I've said this to people and they're like, yeah, right. But I've got 13 other ones on the go in my Trello board. Right. And And it's not that I'm focusing on one in general. It's that when I receive thoughts, I'm plugging them into wherever that might be fitting. And I'm sort of going to let that inform me on which book is the next one. So I've got them trademarked under the Keep It Simple Smarty Pants title. And I'm going to keep them in that similar format because I think it's readable. I think it's practical. I want it to be easy and entertaining. And I want people to be able to use the information and apply it.
Yeah.
So, I have several. It's just going to break it down more, probably into more categories, maybe money, relationships, and so on. And, or there might be another one about just life in general and how to bring all of that together. So again, I've got 13 going. It might end up being 5 out of that list of 13, right? That maybe some get condensed. And that's still what I'm just chilling out on that and letting it sort of inform me rather than trying to make it happen.
Cool. It sounds like you're creating a little family of books under the Keep It Simple Smarty Pants.
That's the intent, at least until that sort of wears itself out. And then who knows what comes next. I have a children's 3 children's books on the go. Oh, and that's extremely exciting to me. And I want to write that under a different name. And I made up like a really fun name. And so I like the fun ideas of it all.
Yeah, well, that's so cool. I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about the fact that you're excited about writing a book. This is why I love talking to writers, because kind of like pits of despair at times. It's like, oh, I never want to see it again. And then when we're done, we're like, oh my gosh, it's the best thing ever. And it's just
right. And there were definitely times that it's kind of gone in my memory right now, but there were definitely times I remember sitting with all of my papers and all of the things that there were to do with my book and wondering how it was all going to come together. There were definitely times when it's like, oh, I just need to walk away from it. And I did. So there were plenty of times when I didn't write, because unless I was inspired to write, unless I was actually inspired to put something down that felt like it was coming from inspiration, I never made myself write. I just didn't. I didn't force the issue. I didn't need to add that pressure, that undue pressure, to something that I wanted to be pure and really coming from alignment to deliver to an audience, even if it was an audience of one.
Even if it was an audience of one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we are sadly running out of time, but I'm definitely going to get you back when you've written your next book. Can you tell us, or can you leave, so I always ask everybody who comes on the podcast to leave the listeners with their top tip for writing. It doesn't have to be like a professional tip or anything, just something that you found useful.
What I found useful was do it. Listen to wisdom, certainly about writing books, and try some things, but make it work your way. Don't make yourself wrong. If you're not writing 1,000 words, don't add pressure to yourself. Do it when you feel inspired. Set yourself up to be inspired. Use self-talk to inspire yourself, to boost yourself, to pat yourself on the back, to speak as if you were speaking to a young child and encourage yourself. And don't need your book writing to look like someone else's. And, I found that out for myself, is like, my book writing looks way different, I thought, than anybody else's, because I'm not writing big, long paragraphs. I'm like tiny little things. Mm-hmm. And that created a book because I elaborated eventually, but it was easy. And I think that the other thing is that book writing is messy. Like, I thought that I would write a book and it would be a book. Here's a book. But it's messy. It's like, it's piecey. And it's, while my editor told me I wrote really well, and there were very few edits in terms of the writing, it was placement. And it's not a book all of a sudden. It's a piecey mess.
Yeah.
And I thought books, well, if I can't write a book, but that's not how it was for me anyway. It's a piecey mess, and then it comes together. So don't be discouraged about that. That's the process.
Thank you. I love particularly that last piece of advice, because I think so many people think that a book is just produced, fully formed, and it's like, no, it's a hot mess.
And that, that was a shock to me. That really was a shock to me, and I had to come to understand that this is how it goes. Mm-hmm. And I really like knowing that, because I think that now my next book will be easier because I've been through the process once. Mm-hmm. And I see how it came together, even when it looked like just a big Trello board full of jotted down ideas.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And then finally, where can we find out more about you? I know your book's available on Amazon, so people can get that from Amazon, but where can we find out more about Christine?
Well, my website, ChristineMeyerCoaching.com, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook under the same Christine Meyer. I've been consistent everywhere, perhaps not all that creative on that, but I like consistency as well. So I'm everywhere under Christine Meyer, and it's either coaching.com or Christine Meyer Coaching on social media. And I'm not huge on social media, but I'm there.
I will pop all of those links in the show notes so that people can go straight to Amazon and buy your book, and they can find you on social media and on your website as well. Christine.
Yeah, and I love hearing from readers as well. And for anybody who does read my book, I'd appreciate some reviews. As you probably know, reviews are really important for authors.
Yeah, and it's like getting blood out of a stone as well. So if you have read Christine's book, if you have read my book, please go
exactly.
Review. Yeah, because it means the world to us. It means the world to us, even if it's not, it doesn't have to be 5 stars. If you've got feedback, whatever feedback is, just leave the reviews and let us know.
Really, really important. And for any of your listeners who have written books or who will be writing books, they'll discover reviews are really important.
Yeah, they are. Thank you, Christine. This has been an absolute delight talking to you. Really looking forward to having you back for your next book at some point.
Yay.
Not too long. And take care. And everybody else, thanks very much for listening. That was great. Thank you so much, Christine. I hope you enjoyed listening to that interview as much as I enjoyed doing the interview. And you can go and get a copy of Christine's book from Amazon. The link is in the show notes. I will be back with Joe same time next week. Yes, we'll be back from our holiday and I will be doing another podcast. So I hope that you have enjoyed this. If you did, please go and rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from. Please share us. Please subscribe on the podcast or subscribe on YouTube, or both would be great. Well, this is what happens when I try and do a podcast from a car, really, isn't it? I'm just gonna let's stop there. Have a wonderful week, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. You can find links and show notes on the website at moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast, where you can also sign up for the best daily emails in the multiverse and find loads of free resources to help you write your book. We'll be back the same time next week with more tales from the book writing trenches and the latest on what the tiny sheeps have been up to.